All right, we are recording now. There's just a few of you on. I know a lot of people wanted it recorded. Actually, I'll wait one more minute. It's 6:29, and then I'll start. Here we go. One more person. All right, I am going to start. I'm just going to go through some basic stuff. Feel free to throw questions in the chat as we go, and then we'll definitely save lots of time for questions at the end. If I'm going too fast, tell me to slow down. If I'm skipping over something, because it might not mean anything to me, but it might mean something to you, just stop me. And we'll make sure that we cover everything that you guys need to know about USCSS. So if my screen will move. Some of the things I wanted to cover is the premium, because a lot of you guys I know are brand new. And, oh, I can hear somebody, and aren't sure what information is in the premium or where to find information. How to become a member, which I think a lot of you are already that are doing USCSS. A couple weird things on entering that can be a little different for USCSS. We'll cover some of the basic rules, not everything, and then we'll go over the titles. And then I'll just tell you guys right now, I'm expecting a package. I don't know if it'll come this late, but my dogs are going to bark like maniacs if FedEx comes and rings the doorbell. So I'll just apologize now. All right, so if I can do this right, I am going to pull up my premium, maybe. Oop, not that one. Nope, nope. Okay, ignore my Facebook page. That's the one I wanted to look at. So we're going to go on this is my website, dooverdogtraining.com, and I have a tab for trials. So we're going to go there. Here you can see all the trials that we have going on. So I'm going to scroll down, and I always put the premium on the website. Sometimes I do the full premium. I think now I'm going to keep to these little boxes. It just looks a little cleaner. So we're going to scroll down, and we're going to look at the April trial because this is a little more more involved than the one we have coming up this Saturday. Now people are coming in. So you didn't miss much if you just came in. All we did so far was go to my website, and we're going to look up the premium for the April trial. All right. So a couple things to notice with USCSS. We can offer all kinds of different stuff with USCSS. They have classic trials and variable trials. Variable means they don't offer one of each element. So we try to always offer containers, interiors, exteriors, vehicles, and then some games. If you have a space that can't accommodate all that, you might just offer, 2 container searches and an exterior search. So that would be a variable trial. And we haven't had those yet, but you may see them. Other places might start having them. I hear out in Ithaca, they might try to start getting some USCSS trials going. So just things to look for. So we're having a classic trial and we're having games. Something else with USCSS that is allowed, that is really not allowed. It might be allowed in a couple other venues, but they have something called nested. So I made sure I put it right on this first page here. And what nested means, we'll run our novice searches, and there'll be one hide in the search. All the novice dogs run, and then we set intermediate, and we're going to use the same space. We're going to keep that one novice hide and add a second hide for intermediate. Maybe make the area bigger, maybe use the same space. Then when advanced comes around, same thing. We might make the area a little bit bigger. We might keep the same space. We're going to add a third hide. So if you have multiple dogs running, you can't run novice and intermediate, or novice and advanced, or intermediate and advanced, because you'll already know where 1 or 2 of those hides are. So some people get bummed by that, but it allows us to offer more events. If we have a space that's not big enough to hold everything, this way we can nest some searches, reuse those areas as long as they're big enough, and are able to offer more. So this is our first trial. We're going to offer senior, and senior is going to be its own search. So if you have a novice dog and a senior dog, then you can enter them both. The other place that this becomes a problem for us, sometimes for you guys, is with volunteers, because in USCSS, if you're running a dog, you can also volunteer. But if you're in advanced, you can't watch any novice or intermediate, because you're going to know where one or two of those hides are before the advanced search. So it's a little bit more difficult finding volunteers, especially in the upper levels. So there's pluses and minuses to it. We didn't do it the last two trials, but we thought we would do it this one just because of the space we have. Something else here on the premium, our next line, is that this trial is on a Friday. The reason it's on a Friday is because the trial location is the Tonawanda Sportsman's Club, which is basically a shooting range. And we have been told that they have no events scheduled on Friday, but a club member could possibly come and shoot. He said if they come, it's usually in the afternoon. So we're trying to, do as much as we can in the morning, but that's another reason why this is on the premium. If you didn't read the premium, you wouldn't know any of this information. You wouldn't know about the nested. You wouldn't know that it's on a Friday unless you looked at your calendar, and you wouldn't realize that this is a shooting range. So it's really important to look at the premium and not just, instant message me and say, hey, what day is the trial? Hey, what are you offering at the trial? Hey, where's the trial at? If you look at the premium, all the information is there. So anyways, more information. The chief search designer is going to be me, so I'm the one setting the hides, and our judges are DJ and Jessica. And it is important to look at the premium for judges. Of course, not with these two judges because they're awesome, but maybe once you're a little bit more experienced and you're doing more trials, and maybe you had a problem at a trial where you got a fault for something that you didn't think was a fault, or your dog alerted on a high hide and you knew where it was and the judge said no, you weren't close enough, then I will look at the judges and be like, who's judging this one? Do I really want to waste my money and go to this trial under a judge that I don't really like? So it's important to look at that. But of course, DJ and Jessica are awesome, so no reason to not enter this trial. Our costs. This is our cost per entry. So if you're entering containers, interiors, vehicles, exteriors, and a game, that's 22 times 5. So each one of those is $22. If for some reason we didn't fill, and our trials have been filling, but we had someone drop out last minute and you decided to come on the day of the show, maybe you had to work and now you don't have to work and you want to come in, you can come in that day, but it's a little bit more expensive because it's a little bit more work on our part and a little bit more work on USCSS's part when somebody comes in last minute. This has been added to the trial. See, all the people that have been doing USCSS aren't on this webinar, and they're not going to see this because they're not going to read the premium, but payment needs to be received within 2 weeks of the entry. And the reason is every other venue has some type of rule where your entry isn't official until it's paid. And USCSS is just like, pay the host. They don't really give the information. Usually the information that we give them to put in the confirmation email to you, they put it in wrong. And it's a lot of time and effort on my part and Stephanie's part to hunt people down for their payments. So now we're putting it in, payment must be within 2 weeks, or we're going to send an invoice. If you don't pay the invoice, then we're removing your entry because it's just too much work for us. We have a lot of other things on our plates. So again, important to read the premium so that you can see that. Refund policy. And most trials do have some kind of administrative fee. Again, it's a lot of work, a lot of paperwork involved, a lot of spreadsheets, a lot of emails back and forth. So when someone does cancel, we do take a little bit of an administration fee from your entry. So as long as you cancel before March 26th, which I think is a week before, then you get your refund back minus $10. If you cancel after March 26th, and we put on here, unless you have a veterinarian or doctor note, if your dog's ill or you're ill, if you have COVID or something like that, we obviously don't want you coming to the trial. So we would refund for that. But if you're just like, I'm going to enter an agility trial instead, then no refunds, sorry. All right, and then we have our little COVID precautions on here, which are on all premiums for any sport pretty much you're doing these days. Number of entries, not that important, but there is something here, multiple dogs allowed. So if you have 2 dogs and you want to enter both, it's allowed. But the second dog either has to be FEO, or you pretty much have to have 1 in novice and 1 in senior. Or what some people do is some will put 1 dog in the elements and then 1 dog in the game. So as multiple dogs are allowed, as long as they're not in that nested category. And obviously the titling dog would run before the FEO dog. And FEO is just for exhibition only. It's just for practice. Doesn't count, doesn't mean anything. You don't get any placements. You can know where the hides are, things like that. This trial, and we talked about this a little bit in the last webinar, it's a first come, first serve. So as I receive the entries from USCSS, they go on a spreadsheet, and that's pretty much how we figure out who gets in and then where the wait list starts. USCSS they have a number 2 and they'll stop entries at a certain amount. It should be 300 runs because we have 2 judges at 150. But then our trial secretary, who is Stephanie, will let you know if somebody dropped that you moved up. So in the beginning, it's USCSS that's telling you that you got in, and then, or on the wait list, and then it's us once you get to that wait list if you actually got in or not, because we manage it after the original entries come in. All right. Becoming a member. We'll get to that in a minute, but that information, the website is right here, and we're going to go to their website in just a little bit. Here we go. This tells you what's offered, basically interiors, containers, vehicles, and exteriors. So we're offering everything for all of the elements. I'm sorry, for all of the levels. We used to put check-in time here and briefing and when dogs would start, but now because we do things a little different and we break things down and have pretty much 10 people come at a time, we're sending that out about a week before the trial and not putting it in the premium anymore. Awards. So there's high in trial. We have a high rescue in trial. So we don't know that unless you tell USCSS that your dog is a rescue. And then that's the only way we can figure that out on our scoring system, is if your dog is listed as rescue there. You can't just tell us that day, hey, my dog's a rescue. It has to be in the system or it's not going to count. The same thing with champion of record. So your dog could be a champion in anything. It could be agility, it could be conformation, it could be nose work. Like my dog's a nose work champion with NACSW. So if they're a champion in anything, they're eligible for this high champion, and that's just the highest score for the day, and it's novice through senior. And then for each of the novice A, novice B, intermediate, advanced, senior, we have first through fourth place, and then first through fourth place overall. The awesome thing with USCSS is that we used to have potlucks. They're really big on making these fun events and everybody hanging out and having lunch together. Everybody brings something, and it was super fun. But since COVID came, we took the potluck out. So hopefully that comes back. And right now you should be there such a short time that you shouldn't have to worry about stopping for lunch. But when they're full day trials, then we do try to get the potluck in. We always try to put an emergency vet in there just in case something happens or you're coming from out of town. And then information on who to contact. This is important. People don't seem to realize it. But the trial secretary is who deals with all of your entries. And, you know, if you have to change something, or if you need to drop from the trial, or you made a mistake when you entered, this all needs to go to the trial secretary. So Stephanie should be getting those. And then general trial questions would come to me. And then if you have a problem with both of us, you would go to USCSS and email them. So that's everything in the premium. This is a fairly short premium. Some of them are much longer, have much more information, but this is a typical USCSS premium. So I'm going to get out of there and let's go to the USCSS website. So let me see if I can even click on it from here. There we go. So this is the USCSS website. It's usk9centsports.com. And if you wanted to, well, let's talk about becoming a member first. So you would just go to join, become a member. Fairly simple process. I believe your membership doesn't cost anything, and each dog that you register is $25. And I could be wrong, and someone can pop in the chat if you just registered recently. Let me see if it shows a price here. If I click on it. No, because it wants me to become a member first. Well, let's do that. I'll log in. $25. And this is where you would click champion or rescue. Now, if your dog becomes a champion, they shouldn't become a rescue unless you just forgot to click the box. You could email info at the US Canine Scent Sports and let them know. She'll probably want some kind of, I had to send my certificate when Daisy got her championship. So she might want to see some kind of proof. But if you forgot to do it when you joined, you can do it later. So that's how you would enter your dog. So you joining is free, your dog is $25. That's membership. And then while I'm here, I am logged in. How do I get to my dog? See, that tells you how often I go on this site. I'm gonna log in here. There we go. So when I log in, my dog's information comes up. All of her titles that she has so far, which is incorrect because she also has her exterior. Oh, goodness. I bet you.
Same problem I'm having.
Yeah, yeah. That's funny. Huh. But it should list. So here's our last trial. And it should list all the information. But yeah, I don't know why it doesn't show that she has all of her. Oh, that's why. So it's showing she has her intermediate, her this distance, and class. Okay, that's what all those D's are. Okay, so she does have them all. So it should show all the titles, should show all their stuff. If it's not in here, contact me and contact USCSS. Normally you would just contact the trial secretary, but they've been so bad about answering questions that I would say get to both of us, and then hopefully if they get bombarded enough, they'll answer somebody. But anyways, so that's how you would look up your dog stuff. Let's go to the rules. So what's cool about their rules, if you just want to skip to a certain part, you can just click on any of these things. So I don't want to go through super details, but I did want to go to who may participate because somebody asked in the group again, and I don't mind that you guys ask questions, but I do get a lot of questions. So I just want to show you where you can find the answers to some of these questions. So who may participate? Dogs over 6 months. So if you've got that young dog and you think they're doing pretty well and you want to test them at a trial and just see where exactly they're at, 6 months is where you would enter, or where you could enter for USCSS. Mixed breds or pure breed, doesn't matter. Deaf, blind, ambulatory capabilities, amputations, things like that. So some of the other venues, not, if your dog looks like they're limping or in pain, make sure you have some kind of vet note hopefully you're not running your dog if they're in pain, but if they have a limp that's just part of who they are because of an issue they're having, you might want to bring some kind of vet note saying that your dog is able to compete in that sport in case a judge or somebody asks. Bitches in season are eligible to run in USCSS, but they have to wear pants and they would run last. And then reactive dogs are welcome. We talked about that in the last webinar, and they should be wearing red bandanas so that everybody gives them a little bit of space. And then they're so nice that they summarized it right there. Somebody asked, I think in the last webinar, about ages. So 10 years old, you have to be 10 years old in order to run a dog in USCSS, but must have a parent or guardian there at all times. And it can't just be a volunteer at the trial, like, hey, can you watch my kid? I mean, someone has to be there with your child while they're running the dog. Then it just goes briefly into if you have multiple dogs, and then it talks about what I was talking about before about the nested searches. So you can only run one dog for title. The other one would have to be FEO if they're nested. And if anybody doesn't, if I'm not explaining that right, pop it in the chat and we'll talk about it a little bit more. So, and we talked about this in the last webinar. Dogs that are aggressive to humans cannot participate. Any, open wounds, stitches, things like that. Lactating bitches, I didn't bring that up before, but they should not be coming to trial, and they probably don't want to be in a trial anyways. We talked about membership and registration. Let's talk about entering a trial. So let me go back. So I'm going to go to trials and upcoming events. I know somebody last time was trying to go through the calendar, and the calendar's not always updated. So I'm going to bring up, see, our trial isn't up yet, even though she told me it was approved and ready to go. So I'm going to enter this trial. I'm not going to hit enter when we're done, hopefully, but I'll just show you what it looks like, because there's some important things to look at. So if you have different dogs, make sure you're picking the right dog. We do have Oli entered, but he's under Aaron's name. All right, very important. This novice A, B, intermediate, advanced, senior. Make sure you're picking the right A or B, because it's just, again, it's one more email, one more contact we have to have with USCSS if you put in the wrong thing. Novice A is what always shows up. So if you just start going in and clicking things and entering, then it shows you novice A for everything. So
what venues does USCSS recognize for designation for novice A? Like AKC, if you get a title in any venue, then you go to B.
Any venue, and I'll bring up the rule book in a little bit. We'll go back to that. So yeah, if you have a overall novice in AKC, if you have your NW1 with NACSW, if you've earned your classic title, you passed all 4 in one day with USCSS. So basically, I mean, you could do PSD or UKC or whatever other, maybe you moved in from, where they have, what's the other one? CWAGs. Maybe you did CWAGs in Ohio. As long as you have your novice title, then you're automatically novice B. So here's a new one that they just started adding in, 4 legs only. And I know a few of you clicked it. You can leave these blank unless you are running FEO. So FEO is for exhibit only. That's if you don't want a title, you don't want this to count, you're just going in for practice. For legs only, and I'll pull up the rule book it might explain it a little bit better, but in layman's terms, for legs only means, say you get your classic title, you pass your containers, your interiors, your exteriors, your vehicles, and then you decide you want to stay a novice for your overall detection dog novice title. You're going to get 3 Qs in each. The next 2 times you run containers, it should be for legs only, which means it shouldn't count for placements. And it's very confusing because I think if you're entered in a trial and you're there, you should be up for placements. But they've been talking about this on the Facebook page a lot, so you guys can check out, and I'll pull that up too in a little bit, the US Canine Sense Sports Facebook group. Some interesting conversations in there, and a good way to get to them if you have questions, because they tend to, if you tag them, they will answer questions. But yeah, basically for legs only means you just are going for the cues, but you can't get placements. So I know a few of you checked for legs only for the games trial, and you can get placements. I mean, if you had your 3 games, if you did 3 double dog dares and you're not eligible for placements anymore, then you would choose for legs only. So I just wanted to explain that a little bit. But I don't want to click on these and hit submit entry because I don't want to enter this trial. I wish my trial was up because I would enter. But anyways, you would click them all. It will give you your price down here, so you know what you're expected to pay, and then you would hit submit entry, and then you would get an automatic email from USCSS. And you can see this trial is not it's a variable trial, just to show you for an example. They've got 2 container searches, an interior, and then some games. So they're not offering everything, just so you can see what that looks like. So let's get out of there. Let's go back to the rule book. So that was how you would enter. And then let's just see. This explains for legs only. Probably not. See, it doesn't even talk about for legs only at all in the rule book. All right. Here's another important one. All changes to trial entries must be made in writing no less than 1 week prior to the trial date to the affiliate trial host. Really, that should be trial secretary. We've had people, 2 days before the trial, oh, wait, I'm not supposed to be in novice. I'm supposed to be in whatever. And again, the score sheets are already printed. USCSS already made our scoring files for us. There's just the running orders probably done by then. So really, if you have changes, make sure you know what you're entered in. You get that email, so you should save that email so you know what you are entered in. And if you do need, maybe you were in a trial somewhere else and you moved up and you do need to make a change, or maybe you really did make a mistake and you just accidentally hit novice A and you forgot to change it to whatever you're supposed to be in. Email trial secretary and she can fix that. But if you don't do it within a week, then you have to stay in whatever you're entered in. Oh yeah, I mean, if it was if we had openings and it was day of show, we could always add you. But other than that, we really should be making change to the classes. We have never done move ups. And that wasn't even in the rule book before. That's interesting. We don't even have move up request forms, so we don't do move ups for that day. So whatever you're entered in that day, you have to stay in for that day. Rules are odors, birch, anise, clove, same as NACSW. Preparation of odor, also same as NACSW. I'll let you guys read that on your own. 1 to 5 scented Q-tips. As a CSD, I'll tell you, I typically put 3 in for trial days, unless it's really difficult and inaccessible hide in the upper levels, but 3 Q-tips is generally what I use. We always have our odor inside odor vessels, unless it's a container. We will tape container Q-tips to the top of a container, but everywhere else it has to be in a straw or tin. We don't do, in the upper levels they do, but in the lower levels there's no combo odors. If you guys have heard that before, I don't do a ton of them in class. I do them once in a while, but you're putting your birch and an anise Q-tip together to make it a combo. They don't do it in the lower levels, so you don't have to worry about that, and it's really not a big deal. That's really one way sometimes that we add an odor for a dog, is by making it a combo. So it's nothing to stress or worry about, but something your dog probably should have at least seen before the trial. So if you haven't done any combos at home, remind me to do some in class, just so your dog knows what it is. Just an explanation of the interiors, exteriors, vehicles, and containers. They're very, very loose on what is allowed. like in vehicles, we've used carts. Wheelbarrow can be a vehicle. You could use kids' toys, you know, with 4 wheels. Anything with 4 wheels on it, pretty much, they include as a vehicle. And containers, you know, anything. I saw, actually, it's in the judges' training. They did a trial where the whole container search was shoes. So they do like to think outside the box. They like to be a little different than the other venues. So you really can see anything in USCSS. All right. We'll go back to the A and B, and I won't go over it, you know, a lot, but novice A, inexperienced competitors. So the human competitor and not the dog has never titled in scent work. So if you got a title with your dog in 19, or I'm sorry, there was no scent work in 19 anything. If you got an NW1 in 2014 with a different dog, and now you're running a new dog, you're still novice B because you have earned titles before. And it does say any scent work venue, so it doesn't matter. Anytime you get anything the equivalent of a novice, then you are automatically novice B, and then it just goes up the ladder. You become intermediate after you pass novice, and so on and so forth. Nested search. Yes, go ahead.
So Lori, so does that, I mean, the way this looks like, then if you are somebody who's just new to this, but you're using somebody's experienced dog, you can still go in novice A?
Yeah, because it's the competitor and not the dog. So yeah, if you wanted to run Daisy,
Yeah.
you would still be novice A.
Okay.
Yeah. If you want to run her, go ahead, because she's really bored.
No, I was just,
It's nice talking to, it's so weird because there's not that many people on here, and it's very quiet. So I feel like I'm just talking to my computer screen. So thank you. Again, we have to put in the premium that it's nested. We did that. Again, I don't want to go over too much detail, but if I'm going too fast, let me know. Height elevation, this is good to know, but again, we do way higher than this in our classes, because in NACSW, NW1 is, we start at 4 feet. So I try to make sure everyone in novice is doing at least 4-foot height. So for novice and intermediate, nothing higher than 2 feet. For advanced, 3, and then senior, 4 and 5. Accessibility. So all of the hides are accessible until advanced. Then we can have inaccessible hides. And inaccessible just means it would be in something, in a drawer, in a cabinet, behind something. So the odor's still coming out, but the dog can't get their nose on the hide. USCSS is very interesting with distractors. They don't introduce them to the higher levels. And we can't even have a garbage can in a novice search, even if it's an empty garbage can. I mean, unless it's totally clean and never had garbage in it, but we can't have garbage cans, any food. When we did the trial at the vet office, we had to clear out all the treats that were in all of the cupboards in the office, the exam rooms we were using. It was very interesting. But anyways, in novice, intermediate, and advanced, no distractors. And then senior and master, there could be toys or novel odor, but still no food. They do not do food distractors in USCSS. So I just thought that was interesting and something you guys should know. We're still going to practice them in class because they're used in every other venue. But USCSS, no food distractors. And you can't use any other oils because they could be used in a different venue, and rat litter and things like that, because they would be used in other venues. So we kind of talked about the classic trial. Ooh, what, way too far ahead. Classic trials and variable trials. The only bummer about variable trials, then you kind of get off track and it takes you longer to get all the cues you need if everything's not being offered, which is why we try to offer all of it. Did I skip too much there? I mean, you guys can look through this part. The classic just means all 4 in one day. And then just to break these down, novice, 1 hide in every element, intermediate, 2 hides, advanced, 3 hides, senior, 1 to 3, and then master, 0 to 4. So you can
it's
have
not
a blank room
here, but
in
it was
master.
before. What's the speed of Lucius, speed Lucius, or whatever that thing was called? Ludicrous speed,
Oh.
ludicrous speed.
Did I skip by that?
Well, it wasn't on here, but it was on when you went to your information
Okay.
about what you're offering.
We'll get there when we get to games. So these are just the basic element titles. And I'm just going to skip through this stuff because it's just a lot of words. Points you need. So if you get some faults, maybe you drop some food. We'll see all the list of faults in a little bit. So you still need to get, or maybe you can get some no's in some of the levels. That's why there's points. But once you get up higher, you have to be more perfect, and you can't get faults in order to qualify. Here it does explain for legs only a little bit. So basically it just says you're not eligible for placements if you stay at a level to get more cues. You can go up and down levels in USCSS. So maybe you got all 4 of your novice in one day, and then you got all 4 of your intermediate, and then you get to advanced, and you're like, oh, you know what? I think we need a little bit more work. Let's go back down to intermediate, or maybe we're going to go back down to novice, or maybe your dog unfortunately is ill. Has an ailment. Maybe they can't search like they used to search, and you want to go back down to novice, or maybe they're just old and you're like, they just want to have fun. They just want to go find one hide and leave. You can go up and down. So that's all explained in here. Again, I won't go into detail, but ask questions if you have them. This is all the variable title. Yeah, we're going to skip all that because we don't even have them. Select trials, I'll just talk about quickly because I've been trying to do a few more of those because they're fun to sneak in between other trials, and we can do them at the building, so it's fun. So there are only 2 searches. So we could literally do 2 container searches, but that's no fun. We always do 2 games. But that's all you can, that's the most you can do at a select trial is 2 searches. The element titles, this is interesting. You can get, every time you earn 3 cues, say you want to stay in novice forever. So you would get your container, you get 3 of them, you get your container novice, and then they add container novice 1, container novice 2, every time you earn 3. And that kind of explains it down here. And you'd be doing those for legs only. So you couldn't get placements. You would just be going for the cues and the title, which I just don't think is right. Again, unless you had an elite dog running in novice, then it wouldn't be fair that you're competing with novice people. So I guess I kind of get that. But people want their placements. And then we have new title ribbons. So that's every time you get 3 of something, you get a new title ribbon. So if you get your 3 containers, it's a new title. Your 3 interiors, it's a new title. And they're like red, white, and blue, and they just say new title on them. They're not very exciting, but we have to follow what ribbons they want us to purchase. So they all kind of, it's what they pick, and it's their colors, and they're not the fanciest ribbons, but that's what we do. All right, let's go over the games really quick because that's the whole reason we brought in USCSS. They have 5 games. So Team Spirit, some of you have seen. There's 4 handler dog teams, and they don't search at the same time, but you do your search together. So you would be spread out 4 corners. So there'd be 4 different entrances. Because we don't want dogs back to back, 2 dogs waiting and coming in the same entrance. And there's 4 hides out, and each dog has to find their own unique hide. So if they found a hide that another dog found, you still have to reward them because it is a fault in USCSS to not reward your dog when they find a hide. So you would have to reward them and then just move on and find your unique hide. As soon as you find yours, you go back to the start, and it's kind of like a tag team. Then the next dog goes in. They have to find one, and all 4 have to be found within a certain amount of time. You can get some no's. If somebody's taking too long, they can drop out and then come back in later. You work as a team. You can call out things to each other, like go check that corner, go check that chair. Hey, we already found something over there, get out of there. You can totally do all that, but you have to be nice, because if you say anything mean to someone on your team, you could also get a fault for that or be disqualified. So be nice to your teammates. So that's a quick version of Team Spirit, and it can be in any element. So we did one with just vehicles at Bloomfield last year. we did an interior at our space, and we've done a few exterior ones. They're fun. I really like the team spirit, except when you don't qualify, then it's not so fun. All right, HEPA hides. So we've been playing this in class this week. If you guys have had class already, but it's between, oh, see, I've been saying all week 0 and 10 hides, but it's between 1 and 10 hides. You don't know how many. You can get 2 false alerts, but every time you do call a false, you lose 5 points. So that is something to know. Time stops when you call finish, or if you get too many faults. There's no penalty for not saying finish. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about by saying finish, that means you're probably still novice and you don't have to worry about it. But finish is what you say to end the search when there's multiple hides. So at novice, there's just 1 hide. You don't have to say it. Some people do it for practice, but we'll make sure we get that in when you guys get to that point. And then the scoring is whoever finds the most amount of hides in the least amount of time, with also the least amount of faults and false alerts. So that's a really fun game. Go the distance. We play this all the time in class. It could be in any element, and it can be on leash or off leash. So if you have a 20-foot line, or at least a 15-foot line, I did one at somewhere in Massachusetts, and it was an exterior, and it was on the back of a picnic table, and I had a 15-foot line that she could barely get to it. It was just a very odd, weird search. We always try to do ours indoors where it's safe, where they can be off leash. But this can be done on, but you can't leave the start line until your dog alerts. And then you can go in to reward your dog, or your dog can run back to you. They don't have to stay there. They just have to search on their own, find the hide, and you have to be able to read it and call alert. No false alerts are permitted in go the distance. And that is usually, yeah, it's only 1 hide, because it would be really hard to do multiple hides for that game. Oops, I skipped over ludicrous speed. This is the one you're asking about. So ludicrous speed, this is what we're having at our April trial. Super, super fun game. We will play it in class. But there's between 5 and 10 hides. You don't know how many. And you have to find the first hide within 45 seconds. And then each hide after that, you have 30 seconds to find. If you don't find it within 30 seconds, you're done. So sometimes, people, they don't find the first hide in 45 seconds and they're done right away. Or, for whatever reason, the dog goes for the harder hide and they just don't get that second one within the 30 seconds. Some dogs go, get all of them. So it's between 5 and 10. You don't know. You call finish when you think they're done or when you time out. Again, no penalty for not calling finish. That is a super fun game. So we'll definitely play that in class before the April trial. We have not done scenting sweepstakes because I'm not sure. It sounds like it's just kind of like a smaller heap of hides, an unknown amount. Whoever finds the most in the least amount of time wins, and then you get money. So I think that would be kind of fun. I would love to go to a trial and earn money and not just a ribbon. So we'll get this in one of these trials. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it in person. I haven't seen it at a trial, so I'm not sure quite how they set it up, but I'm assuming it's just a big search with 1 to 5 hides. So we'll get that in. Double Dog Dare. We've been playing this in class. So it could be 1 or 2 hides. It could be in any element. You pick a card when you come in, and that card will have an action on it, and you have to do that action the entire time your dog is searching. If you pull a card and you're like, I'm not doing that, you can pull again, but you're going to lose 5 points. So it's nothing to be embarrassed about. It's fun. It's just a way to be silly. And can your dog search while you're acting like a fool is basically what this tests. So you can get 2 false alerts, which I apologize to everybody that came to the Halloween trial that we didn't have that in play in the beginning of the trial. We had it fixed about halfway through, and we gave everybody their cues back from the beginning. But it's a fairly new game, and I don't even know if these rules were in the rule book at the time that we did that. So you do get 2 false alerts. You can get 2 false alerts, but you would lose 5 points for each. And again, it can be in any element. It can be on leash or off leash. Even more difficult if you're doing it on and you have to do an action. So a good way to practice, if you wanted to practice some on leash stuff while you're doing something silly. And then it just talks about the points. So some of them, like heap of hides, you only have to find half of the hides. You only need to get 50 points in order to pass. So just really quickly, because this week I had 9 hides out. Oh my.
He wants dinner.
Sorry, I'm almost done talking.
That's all right. Don't worry about it. They get fed at the same time every day.
So for this week, we had 9 hides. They'd be worth 11 points each. So you'd really have to find 5 of them in order to qualify. Because if you found 4, you'd be under. And then, of course, if you get a false, you have to find more because you're losing 5 points. But team spirit, and that's you're scored by the team. So it's even if your dog found their hide in 10 seconds and it took somebody else a minute, it's the whole team's time and the whole team's points is how you get scored. Go the distance, again, you can get 5, you can get 1 false. So that's why that's 95 points. Ludicrous speed is the same as heap of hides. As long as you find half of the hides, you still qualify. Scenting sweepstakes, again, I don't know too much about that, but 75 points. Double dog dare, because you can get those 2 false alerts. That's why it's 90 points. There's another game called Copycat, which is on, like, it's a choice when you apply for a trial and you're filling out the application, but I have not been able to find anywhere what Copycat is, what the rules are, how to play it, or anything about it. So I will let you guys know that when we find it. And then I talked about the championship title. We're not there yet in our area because we haven't had that many, but something that I'm sure a lot of you will be going for in probably the next year or so, because we're having more and more trials and a lot of these dogs are just going right up the ladder. So we'll take a look back at that when that time comes. The ribbons and stuff, I don't want to talk about too much, but I will let you guys know the way we've been doing kind of take your own ribbons. So we have these little purple qualifying ribbons. So as soon as you know and you'll know, the judge isn't going to keep it a secret if you didn't pass. So if you got a no, you know you didn't. But if you got a yes and didn't do anything majorly wrong, you can go ahead and pick up that Q ribbon at the end of your search. We usually have them on a table somewhere. And you can pick up your title ribbons. So if you've passed all 4 in one day, you would pick up your detection dog novice classic, or intermediate, advanced, whatever you're running in. If you've passed 3 games, if you've done double dog dare 3 times and you qualified each time, you could pick up that new title ribbon. So those we all leave out and you guys can just take what you earned. If you have a question and you're not sure, you can just look up your dog's account and see where they're at and see if you earn that title that day or not. And then placement ribbons, in normal days before COVID, we would kind of do at the end, once the score room got all the scores in and we had everything figured out, then we would do placement ribbons, probably halfway into the next element. So probably halfway into intermediate, we'd be doing the novice and so on and so forth. And then we do the the high-end trials at the end of the day, and the high champion and the high rescue dog. But lately, and luckily most people are local, I've just been either bringing them to class or driving them out to Rochester, or the Pennsylvania people, if they come, have been staying and grabbing theirs. So we, it's not as fun. We're not really doing award ceremonies and things, just kind of take them. But hopefully we'll get back to handing ribbons out when the world gets a little bit better. But just so you guys know how that's going right now. So if you're entered Saturday, you would just take your Q ribbons. And then if you know that was your 3rd time doing double dog dare, you could take that new title ribbon, and then I'll bring you your placements in class if you earn them.
So can you get a classic title after, can you get a classic title after you've earned individual legs?
Yeah, so if you didn't pass everything the first time, but then your second trial, you do pass all 4, then you can get your classic. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Doesn't have to be the first time. Just anytime you do all 4 in one day.
But we don't have to do all 4 in one day.
No.
Okay.
You can just keep collecting Qs until you get 3 of each, and then go for that overall detection dog novice title.
Okay.
that make sense? It's a
Yes.
little weird that you could do it both ways. But it's just more ways to earn ribbons and more ways to play, I think. But you could do it either way.
So if you get your classic, then your individual legs that you would go for your detection are not for legs only. They're still for placements, right?
Huh?
I'm thinking.
So if you get classic on one day, you know,
Uh-huh.
on a trial, all right,
Yeah.
but you want to go for your detection dog, which I guess is what you need when you get 3 legs in each individual element, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
That's
So
when they're saying you should be for legs only.
those would be then legs only.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Very, and they really need to clarify that in the rules better. But they've been talking about a lot in the Facebook group, and everybody's complaining about it. So,
I'll just ask you.
yeah. High end trial, just so you guys know, because sometimes some of you guys are superstars and you just enter the elements and you're like, I don't want to do the games, they're scary. You're not eligible for high end trial unless you do the games. So if you're there and you have time, you might as well do them, so you can go for high end trial. But if you're really afraid of the games, you don't have to do them. Or you could just come and do the games and not do the rest of the stuff if you just want to come and do the fun stuff. So yeah, they're saying the second, third, and fourth overall are optional, but I always give them out because I just think we should. High rescue, high record, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, if we weren't doing high end trial, we have to put it in the premium. So I just like doing it. I mean, I don't care. It's more money and more expensive ribbons, but I think you guys deserve them. So as far as I know, unless we decide to really change things or something happens, we're always going to have high end trial ribbons. Then it talks about their specifications, about how we can't change them at all. We have to use the ribbons that they say. And then here's all the different colors. It's nice and right there in the rule book, blah, blah, blah. And then some general rules, dog safety, competitor conduct. You know, in USCSS, dogs can mingle about. They can hang out. They don't have to stay in their car all day like they do in NACSW. But if your dog is barking at another, your dog still shouldn't be meeting. Your dog still shouldn't be bothering other dogs. You know, there was one trial where you had somebody sitting with their dog right at the gating area as every single dog was coming up. And there were some reactive dogs there. And then they had to deal with this dog that was barking in their face. And we're like, someone get that person to move. Like, I think I was judging, but I kept hearing about it and I could hear the dog barking. I'm like, that person has to move. They can't just sit in the gate area with their dog. You know, if they want to hang out in the gating area and talk and chat with people, that's fine, but then put your dog away. So dogs can mingle, but they shouldn't be causing a problem. That's all I'll say there. I just I just saw this. Strive not to have a rule named after you. I never noticed that before. So yes, we don't want anybody to have a rule named after them. And then they just talked about being mindful. I just skipped over that. Be mindful, getting your dogs, you know, through the search areas and things like that. We can have spectators in USCSS. Again, we haven't during COVID, just for safety reasons and getting the trial to move faster and smoother and kind of getting you guys in and out. But if you guys are on here and you're new, especially this April trial, it's, you know, there's going to be some outdoor space. I mean, we're still in COVID times. We still need to be careful. But if you want to come watch a little bit, it's a great way to learn how trials work. It's a good way to watch other dogs, see what is their indication, what do they look like, what did that handler do that I liked, what did that handler do that, ooh, I really don't like, and I hope I never do that. Really important things. What, you know, spectating at a trial and volunteering at a trial is the best education. It's better than paying for a seminar, better than paying for a class. Not that I'm telling you not to come to class, but if you just watch at a trial and watch 30 dogs run the same search, you will learn so much. So spectate and volunteer for sure. But spectators should be quiet, should not be giving things away. I remember we had an ORT years and years ago, and I know we're getting close to 7:30. But we had some older people that wanted to come and watch, and every time the dog would go by it, they'd go, oh, or ooh. So, you really have to watch your gasps and noises, and even your facial, faces you're making, because you don't want to tip anything off in nose work. You don't want to let the handler know anything. So just be careful if you are
Poker face.
spectating. Video and photography, you are allowed to have somebody video your searches for you, but you can't use it to be like, I'm going to complain about the search and go to the judge. Judge's decision is final. So if you video, that's just for your own sake. And we had a photographer last year. So I don't know, the years are mixing together 2 years ago. We'll try to start doing that again once things get a little bit safer. One difference with USCSS than I think any other venue is that there's no walkthrough. So you don't get to see the areas before you search. They're always a surprise, and that's COVID or no COVID. It's always been that way, no walkthrough. Where the other venues, you can walk through and see what the area looks like before you go in. We usually do a briefing. I've been doing them via email lately, but do expect a briefing before each novice, intermediate, before each group. There'll be a little explanation and reminders of rules and things like that. Oops, I did want to go through faults really quick. So a deduction of 5 points each if your dog doesn't properly cross the start line. That happens sometimes outside, if the breeze is coming a certain way and that odor is just hitting your dog's nose, they might cut those cones to get to odor as fast as possible. So definitely pay attention to that when you're working outside. Inside, it's usually not too much of a problem, but it can be depending on where the hide is. Failure to reward. What's that?
I was just going to say, so if they cross the line, but you bring them back and send them through, is that still a fault?
No, then you'd be okay. Sometimes though, like if my dog's going right for, it stinks because it might hurt your place. You wouldn't get a placement because you're going to lose those 5 points.
Right.
But I'd almost rather not interrupt the search.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It really depends on what's happening, but especially if they're, going right towards odor. And usually like the timer will still start it at the point your dog crosses the line, even though they're not between the cones. So it might just, the judge might just give you a warning in the lower levels, but it really should be a fault. Like I said, you have to reward your dog in this venue. You can't just be like, your dog finds 3 hides and you take them out and give them something outside the ring. You have to at least verbally praise them or give them a toy or something, even if you don't reward with food, but you have to reward your dog when you call alert. Food fault, basically dropping food in the search area. Toy fault is letting your slobbery toy hit the ground in a search area. Destruction of search area, if your dog's like mutilating boxes, then stepping on a box isn't a big deal. Moving it a little bit, but if they're just destroying, we had one trial where it was plastic containers and they just literally got smashed, plastic just everywhere. That was a fault. That was almost a dismissal. It was really bad. And then any unsafe leash or dog handling. And that's in kind of all the venues. I don't want to go through all of these because I know it's like just about 7:30 and I want to answer questions. But disqualifications, if they eliminate in the search area. So if they pee or poop, if they're aggressive, if the competitor is harshly, verbally, or physically reprimanding the dog, any unsportsmanlike conduct to the judge, other competitors, spectators, or workers, or double handling. And people ask what double handling is. That is if somebody, like if you have a friend with you, or maybe your dog is co-owned, or it's a volunteer, or somebody else is helping you in some way from outside the search area, you are disqualified. So if someone's giving you little hand signals or pointing, or if, it's obvious that someone is trying to help you, that is not cool in nose work, and that's in all the venues. And again, I'm going to skip through all these descriptions. You guys can read that. You can excuse your dog, and I'd almost give you an A+, even though you didn't pass, if your dog is so stressed they can't search, if they're not feeling well. If you're not feeling well, if something happens, maybe another dog's barking or an animal runs to the search area and your dog's just lost it and they can't search and you pull your dog. So that's you excusing the dog, as opposed to the judge might just be like, your dog is not searching, your dog is super stressed, you know, your dog shouldn't be entered in this trial, and the judge could also excuse your dog, or if your dog's being aggressive or something like that. So you can decide to pull your dog, or the judge can, and it's always much better when I'm judging, when the competitor, when I'm just about to be like, oh, I gotta excuse this dog, and they decide to pull them. It always makes my day when they decide and not me. Couple other things in here that I just don't want to go through because we're just about 7:30. We always run a dog in white, so we run a dog to make sure that they can find the hides before you guys come out, just so you guys know that. USCSS has an open door policy, so you can ask them all the questions you want. They're probably not going to answer you.
Yeah.
But you can ask them. Let's see. If anybody's interested in becoming a judge or a CSD, we'd love to have you. You can find that information on the website. And I think, and then there's just a whole bunch of descriptions. So this is good if you guys are new and you're not sure what some of these words mean that we say in class and you're afraid to ask. There's kind of like a glossary here of a lot of these words. So feel free to look those up. I think we're just about done with the rules. Yeah, okay. Let's, you guys have any questions? What didn't I cover? I'm sure there was something I meant to cover and I forgot.
I asked them all if you were doing them.
Oh, let's see. I do have the chat box going here. Yeah, okay. So yeah, that was from way back. So Melissa asked, and this is earlier, and maybe I explained it, but would a title be earned if you got your 3 Qs in any element or game? So if you just got, and this would be AKC or anything else. So maybe you got your container title in AKC, you got your 3 Qs in containers. That's still not an overall novice title, so you'd still be novice A. So if you earn just an element title or just a games title, you're still A. It's when you pass all 4. And whether that's 1 Q, like the classic, all 4 in one day, or if you didn't get all 4 in one day and you're collecting your 3 Qs of each, that's your novice. But as far as I'm reading, as far as I know, if you just have those element titles, they don't count. It has to be your overall novice. And I'm just checking the chat, make sure there's nothing else. Any other questions? No?
Okay, I've got one here.
Sure.
So you've got an overall, so I suppose it would also, I mean, I realize we're just talking about USCSS, but I suppose it would go the other direction as well. So since buried isn't offered in USCSS, right? So if you don't have,
I see what you're saying. But if you still have your overall novice, your AKC title, even though they do buried instead of vehicles, is that what you're asking?
Yeah, one way or the other. So
yeah. And AKC pretty much still says with any, because they're the only venue that does buried. So even if you have your NW1, which is NACSW, which is vehicles, they're just saying any novice title, you're automatically B.
Oh, okay.
So
all right.
yeah, I wouldn't worry about the buried and the and vehicle difference as long as it's an overall novice.
Okay.
Anything else? I just want to go back to my PowerPoint. Just to make sure I didn't miss anything. I think we covered all that stuff. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, guys. I'll record this and put it in the group tomorrow in case you want to hear me ramble some more. Sorry, I was so off tonight. But thanks for joining me. And if you guys have topics for the next one, I already have some ideas for some others. But this just helps me get the information to you because I can't always answer it thoroughly in class. And this just helps from all the messages and texts and in comments and emails. I'd rather put it all out in one place, and then you guys can find it and find your answers. But please don't be afraid to ask me questions. I'm not saying that I don't want anyone to not ask me questions, but the more information I can get to you guys, the least questions you'll have. So
Yeah.
thanks for joining me. And
Thanks for having us.
yeah, we'll try to do something again next week, guys. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.
All right, bye.
Ugh.